Hello and welcome to this month's office hours. My name is Alex Key, and with me is Christian Shea. We are product managers in the Oracle database group, and we want to present to you some of the new things we've been working on, namely the biggest of which is our .NET and EF Core 10 support. So we want to give you an update on that, as well as some of our upcoming features that we're going to be delivering in the next couple of months, including the ability to use spatial data with EF Core and cloud providers and OpenTelemetry and whatnot. So thank you for joining us for the next hour, and hopefully we can help you learn something new about using Oracle and .NET and Visual Studio with our database. Okay. So as I said, we'll kick off with our recent support of .NET 10 and EF Core 10. Then talk about something we'll deliver by the end of this month is the Oracle spatial data in EF Core. And then after that, I'll introduce a couple new centralized configuration providers that we have for you in the Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud Platform. Then we'll talk about something that we'll deliver in the new year, soon in the new year, and OpenTelemetry tracing with the Oracle database and ODP.NET, so you have true end-to-end tracing. Transaction priority, which is a very useful feature if you have a lot of transactions going on and you don't want high priority transactions to be delayed by low priority one. And then we'll end this with a tools update on what we're doing there. Okay. So first off, .NET 10 EF Core 10, that's the major release in November that Microsoft had. And I'm happy to say that we'll begin with .NET 10 itself. ODP.NET is supporting .NET 10. We certified it with ODP Core 23.26.0. It is available today on NuGet Gallery, so you can download this version on NuGet Gallery. In fact, it's been available since October, which is before the November release of .NET 10. And how that's possible is that with every new .NET runtime release, Microsoft has made sure for ADO.NET it's maintained backward compatibility. This has occurred ever since, I believe, .NET 3 or .NET 5. Somewhere, maybe .NET 5 might have been the first where it had that backward compatibility, but it's been a while. So we've been able to test through all the release candidates and whatnot, have been pretty assured that we're gonna be pretty clean when Microsoft does release. And we did our testing over a day or two after Microsoft's release of .NET 10, and we were able to certify within 2 days, which is kind of great news for you all, so that you can get that ODP Core 23.26 and be able to use that with your .NET 10 applications. Then for EF Core 10, EF Core is a bit different because it does change with every major version in terms of what the underlying EF Core provider needs. So somewhat different from what ADO.NET providers need to do. EF Core does require providers to make specific changes for every new major version of EF Core. And as such, we deliver, just like every other provider out there for Entity Framework Core, we deliver a new provider version for every major release that comes out. So you can't just use an EF Core 9 provider with EF Core 10. So we certified with that as well, which is great news. That's version 10.23.26, and that was released within 2 weeks after EF Core 10 came out. So we did it pretty quickly. One of the very first third-party EF Core providers out there that were able to do the certification so quickly, and pretty much in line with the MPG SQL provider as well, the Postgres provider. So we did it. We turned it around pretty fast, did the testing, did the validation, made sure that sometimes there's some breaking changes that get released between the final release candidate and the production release, but things were looking pretty good. And in terms of new features in there, we've had several that were part of EF Core 10, and we are supporting those. So just to start off with, left join and right join operators. So if you want to use those link operators within your application, left join and right join, you'll be able to use that with ODP.NET and your Oracle Database SQL, or Oracle Database Link will then turn it into SQL, so it's much easier to use those joins. Be able to use, be able to update relational JSON columns. Before you couldn't do that, but now with execute update, you'll be able to do that with EF Core 10. And then if you are using Lambda expressions and you want to do an execute update async, you'll be able to use those now with EF Core 10. And then, whoops, went backwards. Go forward. There we go. And then if you have any applications that are using logging and whatnot for your EF Core 10, before it would actually log in your constants, and sometimes you want to redact that data. So now it will now EF Core 10 will obey those redaction directives, so that those aren't written to the log. Before they were written to the log, even if you wanted to redact them or hide them from the log. So now that's more secure. We're optimizing the count operation on iCollection of T. So we're going to use the SQL exist instead of count. So that's an improvement. And then parameter name simplification to make it easier to read your parameters as when it gets converted into, say, SQL and whatnot. So a lot of improvements that we've made to support EF Core 10 in a more native way here that you'll be able to use with ODP.NET. So let's move on to Oracle Spatial Data in EF Core. And you might ask, well, Alex, maybe we should do a demo of some of this. And I will say, I'm going to wrap this all into one, because the Oracle Spatial Data, I will show a demo of that, and that will run, because it uses EF Core. We're going to use it with EF Core 10. And because it uses EF Core 10, of course, runs in .NET 10. So we'll get a 3-in-1 demonstration of an application running in EF Core 10 and .NET 10 with our Oracle Spatial Data demo. And it's very important to point out that for the spatial feature that I'm going to talk about, the spatial capabilities that are specific to EF Core and NetTopologySuite, that will be available with only EF Core 10 and higher. So we're starting our support with EF Core 10, so that you'll be able to, you know that going forward that you'll have to have at least that version. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the spatial support. It's been something that a lot of developers have been asking for. Spatial applications are quite common, and if you're not that familiar with spatial, what that exactly is being able to support location data or data that has coordinates or has geometry that represents shapes. And Oracle Database has been able to support this for a very, very long time. We've had native data types, native geometry data types within the Oracle Database. You can represent things like points and lines, polygons, maps, locations on maps, 3D renderings, 4D shapes as well. So there's lots of things that you might be able to do, not just locations, but also just generic shapes and how things might be connected to each other or not connected in space, or over time, 4D as well. So there's a lot of possible applications with it, but the most common that people use it for are obviously maps, since that's one of the things that we'd like to have data for. And the way to use spatial data of Oracle is, at least in a standard way in .NET, is NetTopologySuite. Now, I will say we've had our spatial support, our ability to support user-defined types and geometry types and spatial types natively within ODP.NET itself for a very long time as well, with managed and unmanaged and ODP Core. But the way EF Core supports it, because it requires a very standard way that all databases can work with, it uses NetTopologySuite. And so what is NetTopologySuite? NetTopologySuite, or NTS, is a .NET open source library, and it's based on the Java Topology Suite library, and so it's a port of that. And what it essentially does is take all your spatial data, store it, query it, map it, and do that with your database, and have a kind of generic set of NTS data types, NTS spatial data types that can share data between any database that has an NTS driver support or NTS library support with your .NET application. So it provides that kind of Esperanto language, common language that you can develop against NTS and then work with any database behind the scenes. And because it has that type of implementation, EF Core has adopted it and becomes the standard way to work with EF Core and spatial data. Now, the NTS library has had an Oracle, the NTS has had an Oracle library for a very long time. This is the NetTopologySuite.io.oracle library, and this works specifically with ODP.NET, so it's not with EF Core. So you can use NTS with Oracle if you want, and it provides that bridge I've been talking about in terms of the spatial types and the Oracle database data types and using it with ODP.NET and converts spatial types back and forth. So you can use this today with ODP.NET. And what we're introducing is the ability to use it with EF Core. So that's the part that's missing, not just ODP.NET, but with EF Core. So if we talk about that, that's what's coming soon. So by the end of this month, what we plan to do is release our Oracle.Entity Framework Core.NetTopologySuite NuGet package in the NuGet gallery. And what this will do is it'll provide a way to do that data type interaction for your EF Core NTS spatial data types. Use that with language integrated query, use that with EF Core, and so that you have all the goodness that comes with the C# strongly typed classes and properties, and then be able to use that with the Oracle database. So how do you do this? Let me give you a code sample, and then I'll show you a demo. So first, you add your DB context to enable your Oracle NTS library. So we can see we have add our database contents. We're using our Oracle EF Core driver here. So we use Oracle, we add a connection string, and then we use this extension method here to use NetTopologySuite. So that pulls a NetTopologySuite. And one of the things you can set on that is the tolerance. And tolerance is just a way to indicate how close points or objects need to be before they're considered the same. Sometimes some applications, if 2 points are close enough, you'll consider them the same, and sometimes you won't. But the tolerance will determine that level that you want to use. And so that's for importing that library into your application, be able to use it. And then as you continue, you're going to want to create a spatial entity class. And here we have a class, we have an ID, and then we provide a NetTopologySuite object or whatnot. Here, we're going to provide it the point location. So we make it public, get it set, and then we create a point here in our C# code, and then we indicate for all the spatial entities where the location is within the certain distance of 1,000, see what is near that point that you declared, and then to a list. So this provides the way for NTS objects to work together and then get translated to the Oracle database. So this is kind of the topology of how Oracle EF Core works with the NetTopologySuite. So we have an application, and this shows you how all the different libraries and packages work together. In red are the Oracle related libraries, and then blue are the NetTopologySuite ones, and the application is in green. So your application will typically, in this scenario, work with the Oracle.Entity Framework Core NetTopologySuite as it works with your spatial types, your Oracle spatial types or your NTS types. And then that will then either go to the Oracle Entity Framework Core or your NetTopologySuite IO library or NetTopologySuite itself, and be able to resolve how to get those interactions between ODP.NET Core, your geometry types, to the Oracle database back, saving it, updating it, whatnot. So what are the capabilities that are available to you in this new release that we're going to have? And one thing I do want to say is that this release will be an initial release, so it'll be a pre-production release. It'll be a kind of a developer's release, kind of a beta. And this we're going to see what you guys think. We want to hear in terms of, are things working? Are features missing? But we think we're pretty feature complete, which I'll go over right now. But we want to hear from you before we turn it into productions, because it's a fairly robust and decent sized set of functionality, and we want to make sure we have it right before we go production with it. But the capabilities of this EF Core spatial library that we have include being able to map our standard spatial types to .NET NTS data types that include point, line string, polygon, multi-point, multi-line string, multi-polygon, and geometry collection. So these are basically all the 7 that are in the NTS EF Core library that are being used. So we're supporting all 7 of them. And of course, you want to be able to manipulate them. So we support the DML against those NTS.NET types, all of the above, as well as translating link spatial operations to Oracle spatial functions that we have. We also support migrations and scaffolding, so you can take a column, a spatial column in the Oracle database, and have it manifested in your .NET app as a class, and of course take that class and manifest it in the Oracle database as a spatial column. And as you've seen, you can configure the tolerance as well. So yeah, so let's do the demo. Oops, there we go. Here I am. This is Visual Studio 2026. And just want to point out, this might be your first viewing of it. I am connected to it. I have this to my autonomous database, and it is using Oracle Developer Tools. And with Oracle Developer Tools, I can see my tables. So I have this table called Places. And if I just, I won't have any data in this, but you'll see that it's a very simple table. It's got an ID column, a name column, and a location column. The location will have my spatial objects in it, my Oracle spatial objects, okay? And then just to show, we are using .NET 10, and we are using Entity Framework Core 10. So we covered the first 2 checks off there. And let's look a little bit through the code. What this application is going to do is it's going to create the table. It's going to, or recreate the table, I guess. And then it's going to populate that table with spatial data. We're going to use all 7 different spatial data types. And then you saw. And then we're going to perform some operations on it. We're going to retrieve the data. We're going to modify the data. And then we're going to delete the data. So kind of the full gamut of operations. So why don't we go to the beginning and see what we can do. So here we have NetTopologySuite. We're using those libraries here. And then let's see what we've declared as our class for this application that it's going to use spatial with. So we've got an ID, we've got a name, and we've got a location. So this location will contain that NTS geometry. And so now that we have this, we'll be able to store all our geometry types within this location column. Okay, so then we call on configuring. We add the NetTopologySuite library. So you can see that here. I'm just going to use the default tolerance level, which is 0.005. And then we will then create the database. So we first ensure it's deleted, then we create it again, and we create our sample geometry. So this is how you would use it if you were for all the 7 different types of geometries that we support. One is a point type. So we have a point, and this is just standard. You give it a name, give it a location, and then you give it its coordinates. And then line string is similar. We give it a name and then coordinates for the line string. Polygon here, and this is a closed ring polygon. Multi-point, and I've given them kind of representative names for what a city or a locality might represent these different geometries for. A multi-line string here. We have different coordinates. And then a multi-polygon here. So here we have multiple polygons for a set of local parks that we have. And then finally, a geometry collection, which is has a point and a line string together. So it's just an amalgamation of various geometries included with it. And so once we have that, we are going to then create it in the database. We insert it. So we add it here as add range to the places, and then we save the changes. So the insert will complete, and then we will query the database. So we say places to list, and then we output it to the screen, the ID, the name, and the location. And at that point, I think I have a read line. So why don't we, and then I think we'll do a query of locations within 2 kilometers of monument point. So that's the first point that we added. So here we include the monument point, where its location is, and then we provide a link to do the query. It's any place that is within a distance of 2 kilometers. We will then return it and output it to the screen. So let's run this and see it in action. So we can see the database getting created. It created 7 sample geometries and inserting those into the database. And then after we insert it, let's extend this out a little bit so we get all in one line. We can see all 7 geometries were added. And then if we queried for places within 2 kilometers of monument point, which has these coordinates, we see that it's monument point, of course, because itself is located within 2 kilometers, the outer ring road segment, the lake boundary, and the metro station entrances. And if we go back to the tools, we can see if we refresh that those coordinates have been, I got to refresh my connection because I haven't touched it in a while. And now I'll be able to now retrieve the data. There we go. So we see we have all the location data here and the names and the location point. So let's go back to the application. So now that we have all the location, let's do some updates with it. So we can do updates just like any other spatial object used with NTS. So we're going to update geometries with the Metro Corridor Network. I'm going to update the Metro Corridor Network geometry, I should say. And so what we're going to do is modify the coordinates for it. Here you can see that we're adding a new geometry here, and we're just going to overwrite it with that geometry and then save the changes. So that will update the Metro Corridor Network geometry, and then we'll show the update here. We can also do kind of more batch updates as well. Anything you need to do updates with using Link, you'll be able to do. So here, we're just going to then modify all the coordinates with, all the geometries with that are greater than 4 in their ID with this line string here. And update that. And then output that to the screen. Somewhere, yeah, all the ones greater than 4. We're going to do the update. Here we can see where the ID is greater than 4. So let's continue running the app, and we should see those 2 updates. So I'll press enter. And then we can see that we have, we've updated the Metro Corridor Network multi-lines to a multi-line string with these coordinates. And then we've also done an update of all the geometries greater than 4 with the same line string as well. So kind of 2 different ways to do updates. And then lastly, we'll do a little cleanup and just show you how to delete. So, so we are here, batch update complete. Okay, so now we go to the be able to delete, and the delete is just a simple remove range call, and we save the changes and all the rows are deleted. So if we continue there, we can hit enter, all rows deleted. We take a look at the data again. Refresh this data, and they should be all gone. As we can see, it's all gone. So that, in a nutshell, is our Spatial demo. And again, should be available as a preview by the end of this month. I will announce it on my blog as well as on X, so that if you guys want to know when it comes, you'll be able to get that. Okay. Are there any questions so far, Christian, or shall I continue?
One person asked if Spatial will support curves or a circle.
Yeah, it should support, I mean, a curve, I guess, would be a line stream, and a circle would be kind of a polygon, if you will, a special kind of polygon. It should be able to, yes.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, great. So that is up to the end of this year. What's beyond that and what we're planning at the beginning of 2026 is several new pretty interesting features. I want to talk about the first one, which is centralized cloud configuration providers. And what this is being able to use ODP.NET and set its things like the connection string, things like its wallet and secrets like passwords, and its configuration in kind of a central location to be used natively by each major hyperscaler. So we have that support today with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and Azure, since those are the first two clouds we did kind of major partnership with. Of course, OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, is going to be one we work closely with. So we of course did that first, but Microsoft Azure, we also work closely with them. We've had a multi-cloud agreement with Microsoft for a very, very long time. So we've finished that. We're not finished, but we've done a lot of work in integrating our clouds and providing a provider there to centralize it. But now with the recent announcements in the past year, supporting Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud Platform, with our ability to run Oracle database in there, with having our Exadata machines located locally in their data centers. Having that capability, we now see a lot more applications moving using ODP.NET in those clouds. So we want to be able to offer our cloud provider in those clouds as well. So let me give you kind of a rundown of what these centralized configuration providers are, so that you kind of understand why they're useful. So one of the things that has happened when the movement to cloud and the explosion of number of middle tier applications, things like Kubernetes and other types of microservices, have made it very popular to have a lot of very small apps, is that managing all those kind of small apps has become more difficult. Managing all those secrets, managing all those configuration, managing all those connection strings, and be able to do evolution of those going along is not as easy as when the typical world was kind of a monolith application. So what we've introduced with these centralized configuration providers is that for each cloud, we're natively providing this integration with each of the major cloud services, things like their secrets management, things like their block storage management, and things like their change notification capabilities. That way, you have a very centralized, a very common way to set your database client settings, your identity, your secrets, even your monitoring, like OpenTelemetry, across all clouds. And that you can manage it more easily within, even if you're not using multiple clouds, even with one cloud, being able to manage that very easily with one cloud, and having that integrate natively with that cloud is going to really improve things in terms of easy use, ease of development. So we want to be able to support the Oracle database and Oracle applications running on every major hyperscaler. That way you get a single configuration for every environment. It's consistent in terms of how you manage identity and authentication as best as we can, since there are some differences, but most of among hyperscalers, but most of them use a very common set of features, and that you'll be able to do some unified monitoring, whether you're using a generic OpenTelemetry capability to do the monitoring, or you're using that hyperscaler's native tools to do monitoring. You can do either one, since they all support OpenTelemetry as well. So either way, will be supported. And this isn't just .NET. It works with JDBC, Python, and C drivers, since we're covering all the major languages that the developers are working with. So what does this look like? Here's a bit of a diagram of how we're supporting it. So all our drivers, starting with 23 AI and including 26 AI, support kind of 4 major areas of services. One is configuration at the top. That includes the client configuration, the URL for the connection, kind of like your connection string now for the cloud, the properties of the driver, passwords and wallets, file, and HTTPS use. And that in Azure and OCI is being stored in the Azure App Config or the Azure Blob Storage, and in OCI is in OCI Object Storage. If you're talking about resources like passwords, database token, TLS context, you can support that. You can have that within the Azure Vault or the Entra ID token with Azure, and then with OCI Vault or OCI IAM token with Oracle Cloud. Traces can be measuring database round trips, app continuity, network events, and you can ship that to a generic OpenTelemetry service that the hyperscalers have, or you can feed it to Azure App Insights to consume there, or OCI APM to consume there. And then for caching, in which you're caching the connection URL, since a lot of people want to cache the URL in the cloud, but then want to keep the connection URL in the cloud, but want to cache it locally because they don't want to have to keep going to the cloud resource, which is a longer round trip. We want to be able to keep it, say, on disk or in memory. So it's much easier to keep, but then they want to make sure that when that connection URL changes, if it's changed on your cloud resource, you want the application to start using it. So that's where this change notification caching comes in. And we support that with Azure Event Grid and Service Bus, and OCI events and OCI notifications. So all these capabilities with OCI and Azure, they are already there, existing for all the major languages. Now, what we're planning to start shipping in early next year, and some of these are already available, like for JDBC, is support for AWS and GCP. And everything on the left is the same, everything in the middle is the same. What's different is the addition of the provider services on the AWS and GCP side. So this will all be new for the .NET side, and we're not gonna, this initial release, we're not supporting all of these, but we'll be supporting a lot of them. So for example, for AWS, I think we're just supporting S3. But later on, we are working on adding support for app config and parameter store. GCP Cloud Storage on the config side is what we'll be supporting. For secrets, it'll be the respective secrets manager. And observability will be for your OpenTelemetry, and traces will be your observability services that each cloud provides. And for caching and change notification, we'll support AWS Simple Notification and Simple Queue and GCP's PubSub. So we are going to bring all the capabilities that we have for OCI and Azure and make those available to you in Google Cloud and AWS. So let me talk more specifically about how these will work, and then I'll do a demo for you. So for AWS, what we have is of course, you're going to be able to authenticate. So we support various ways to do authentication with our provider. You can use an access key ID and access key, and then that can or cannot include a session token, if depending on your setup. We support AWS credentials profile, as well as the ability to use the default credential profile resolution. In terms of providers, it'll be the S3 service, as I mentioned, as well as Secrets Manager and the AWS Secrets Manager. And for change notification, we'll support that with your connection URLs with the simple notification service that will send the notifications, and the simple queue service, which will receive the notifications. So let me cover the GCP one, and then I'll do a demo of both AWS and GCP to show you how this kind of works. For GCP, the authentication we give you is be able to use the GCP app credentials environment variable and the GCP user credentials, as well as using the service account returned by metadata server. So that'll be your authentication capabilities. In terms of providers, we support cloud storage and the secret manager, and change notification GCP PubSub. So those will be in the initial release of our providers. And then over time, we're going to add more and more capabilities to them. And we want to hear from you in terms of what capabilities you're looking for so that we can prioritize which ones that we should add next. So with that, let's do the demo of starting with AWS. So here I am in my AWS app. And what I've done is I've set the access key ID, secret access key, and session token so that I have the credentials to be able to access to my, be able to access the AWS bucket there to get access to the information that is stored there. And then I set the region. And the information that I have stored is something like this connection to, which has the user, the password. The password is stored in the secret manager with a location of where the secret is located in the secret manager. And then we can add some additional metadata information to configure the connection. Here we have the TNS information, and it's connecting to an autonomous database. And then we can also set part of the kind of connection string here, configure the connection pool. We're going to set the max statement cache size. We're going to set pipelining. And then the secret manager also has our wallet. So we're going to tell it where to not only get the password, but also the wallet. And then once it has that, we provide to the connection the location of this kind of I guess the information, the bucket of information. So we tell it to use AWS 3 odp.config, and the key will be this connection to in this JSON file. So above is what's in the JSON file. This is kind of the connection URL, where to locate it, and has all the information. So the nice thing about this, it works just like with Azure and OCI in the same way if you're familiar with that. If you're not, this is just a connection URL. Instead of providing the connection string, you just say, okay, go here to this URL, which will have all the connection string information that you need to do the connection. And once we provide that kind of URI, I should say, we will be then connected to the Oracle Autonomous Database using that AWS information. So we'll do that first, but you can always use a traditional connection string as well. And here I have that same information, except we're providing a descriptor. And here, instead of storing that connection string inside AWS, we're just going to go to AWS for the password. Here we can see it's going to the secret manager for the password. And we're going to go to AWS for the wallet. Here you can see we're going to the wallet. And with the connection string, we're configuring it. We provide the password from that secret URI, and then we get the TNS descriptor that we defined above. Then we set the wallet location to the wallet that is in this URI. And let's run this and see if it works. So we can see that we get connected to AWS and that we are able to connect to the Oracle 26 AI database. And then we do that both with the URI as well as with the traditional connection string. So both of them work as expected. So even though these are 23 and 26 AI ODP.NET, they work against any version of the database that those support. So they can work with 19C and higher. It's just that to use these new config providers, you'll need a newer version of ODP.NET. So that was AWS. Let's look at GCP. And let me close this guy. Okay, for GCP, here we have very similarly, we are going to set an application's credentials in our environment variable. We provide a project ID, a bucket name, an object name, and then we form our connection string with a URI that we provide with that project ID, with that bucket, and with that object name, looking for the key for connection 1, and that connection 1 will have the full kind of connection string information, and then we'll see if we connect. So very similar concepts. So a little differences in how they authenticate what each AWS and GCP requires, but we can see here that we get connected to GCP in our 26 AI database, and it works Okay, my cursor, there it goes. Okay, so that was AWS and GCP. Let's talk about a couple more interesting ODP.NET features before we talk about tools. End-to-end OpenTelemetry tracing. So OpenTelemetry has been available with ODP.NET for a while, as well as just standard applications. So this you can do today with 23 or 26 AI ODP.NET. Have your OpenTelemetry trace created, even use metrics if you want, and then output that to whatever application you want to view and monitor your traces from. What has been missing is OpenTelemetry for the Oracle database. So we're planning to ship that early next year. So you'll be able to have that within your Oracle database. So you can have database OpenTelemetry as well as ODP.NET OpenTelemetry. But that's not all. We are going to allow you to have the spans be able to span the generation, to be able to go from one layer to the next between client and server and have that span generation for the app so that you can get a more complete application flow picture. So this is real end-to-end OpenTelemetry from your database app to the database server. And what this will not only will help you visualize what is going on with your application flow, it will help improve your diagnosability. Because right now, you'll be able to database OpenTelemetry diagnose just on the database side, or ODP.NET OpenTelemetry diagnose issues on just the ODP.NET side. But if there's a problem when the interaction between database and provider occurs, you're going to need something that can span the two, and that's what this end-to-end OpenTelemetry will do. So that's kind of the benefit, is not only you're getting the database OpenTelemetry, which is a big benefit in of itself, you will also get end-to-end OpenTelemetry now that when it gets delivered. So how do you use this? We're going to add a new property, and this will be part of our next major ODP.NET release. And this is going to be added to your Oracle Connection and Oracle Data Source Builder objects. This property is database OpenTelemetry tracing, and it's by default false. But if you set it to true, it will enable server-side traces to be exported to OpenTelemetry. And of course, if you want the client-side OpenTelemetry, you enable ODP.NET's OpenTelemetry as well. So you can enable the database OpenTelemetry from here, from the ODP.NET side if you want, so that you can have that tracing. And then the last major feature we have coming early next year is transaction priority. Transaction priority is trying to solve the problem of when you have an application with multiple transactions, and one transaction or several transactions might be holding up other very high priority transactions. And when that happens, then you have to have some manual intervention. You have a poor user experience. If some transaction is holding up other transactions and it can't be rolled back, or it can't commit on its own, the DBA has to go in and manually kill that blocking session, and then it'll get resolved in terms of how to reverse out the operations. And for the end user, it results in a very poor experience. So there's a lot of downsides all around for both the end users as well as the ongoing administration. Now, what we're trying to solve that with with Oracle AI Database 26 AI is introducing the ability to assign a priority level to your transactions. So what this does is that you know which transactions have high priority, medium priority, and low priority, which ones are important, which ones are not, and which ones are maybe in the middle. So for those that are low priority, if they're ever blocking a high priority or a medium priority transaction, those low priority ones will time out. They will time out after a timeout you set, so however long you set, and then the high priority transaction can then move forward. So we'll roll back the low priority transaction and allow the higher priority transaction to continue moving forward. The session that had the rollback remains alive, which is good. It's better than killing the session, but only the blocking transaction is rolled back. And so the logic and the priority is kind of what you would expect. is that high priority transactions, they never roll back, of course, but then your medium priority transactions only roll back if a high priority transaction needs to commit. And you can set the timeout with this priority transactions high weight target. And then low priority transactions will roll back if either there's a high or medium priority transaction that is waiting. And you can set for high its own weight target as well as the medium weight target timeout. So how does this look in code? In terms of code, we have two transactions here, appropriately named low priority transaction. And we have this enumeration to indicate what the transaction priority is. Here, indicate that it's low. And then we have a commit here. So this command A, we have a commit for this connection A. And then we have this high priority transaction with connection B and command B. And this is indicated by the high Oracle transaction priority. We provide the command. We wait until the timeout, and then we'll try to commit it. It will kind of wait for the timeout to occur if the command A is blocking and is not committing. And since it never calls commit, it will definitely time out. And then we will have the high priority transaction commit, even though this first transaction is technically blocking, but it will be rolled back to allow the second transaction to commit. And of course, we want that because this salary increase is higher than the lower salary increase. Of course, we want the higher salary increase to commit first. So that, in a nutshell, is all the new features we have with ODP.NET that we've delivered in the past month and is upcoming in the next, I will say, a couple of months.
Alex, before you pass it over to me, someone followed up on that question about circles and arcs so what the person said is, even though STO geometry or spatial Oracle Spatial supports that, he doesn't think NTS supports it. Do you know?
Okay. Yeah, if NTS cannot support those circle and arcs. I guess because there's some specific shapes that may be circle and arcs that don't fit in those other geometries, then no, we wouldn't be able to support it. So the benefit of NTS, EF Core, all those is that it gives you kind of a generic set of functionality that all databases can support. But of course, the downside is that you don't get all the uses of the database if the database can support it. So yeah, if it's not available with NTS, then we can't support it. Yeah, or if there's no way to fit those shapes into existing NTS shapes, then we can't support it because NTS is a generic.
If someone needed to do it, they could do it outside of NTS, right? They could use.
Yeah. So you'd be able to do it with generic ODP.NET user-defined types and working with geometries in that way. But if you want to use it with EF Core, the universe of capabilities is whatever NTS offers and whatever EF Core can expose through NTS.
Okay, thank you, Alex.
No problem. So I will stop my share, and why don't you take over, Christian?
Okay, you see my screen?
Yep, it's just come up.
Okay, this will be very quickly, but I wanted to brief everyone on our Visual Studio extension that we have. There's currently one out there right now. It's labeled as Oracle Developer Tools for Visual Studio 2022. You can find it in the marketplace, which is hanging off of the menu in Visual Studio. We are in the process of working hard on another release that's coming out sometime in early 2026 called 23.26. So a few things to mention. Microsoft released Visual Studio 2026 in November, and the current extension that, like I said, is labeled Oracle Developer Tools for Visual Studio 2022 will work with that. So this is the first time that it's ever worked out of the box. Like, we usually have to do a separate release for a new version of Visual Studio, but the way that Microsoft is doing releases now allowed us to immediately support it. So that being said, um, you may already be doing it without knowing it. If you've upgraded in place, you probably automatically pulled over your extension, didn't even realize that this was an issue before. So in any case, we are hard at work at 23.26 release in early 2026. And some of the features that are coming, the biggest one is we are removing query window, which was our SQL and PL SQL editor in the release. And we are replacing it with a full-fledged SQL and PL SQL editor. So it's no longer just a specialized ad hoc query window. It's a full-fledged SQL and PL SQL editor with everything like instant IntelliSense as you type, um, and collapsible regions, and all of the different features that come with an editor will be supported in this release. It'll support both SQL, PL SQL blocks, and also SQL Plus scripts. So that's a huge feature. And I'll be demoing these features at some point in 2026 when we do one of these office hours. At that point, I'll do a demo of this stuff for you. And then along with the SQL and PL SQL editor, we're adding a SQL and PL SQL formatter. And then there are some areas that have a little rough edges with regard to Visual Studio 2026. So we're enhancing, basically taking advantage of some new internal functionality with 2026 to make things nicer for you. We're adding support for Select AI, which is basically natural language queries. So instead of select star from employees, you say select AI, what are the names and salaries of all my employees? And it's a little bit more complex than that, but I'll get into that at a future date. And then we're adding support for the 23 AI data types like vector, Boolean to our table and view designer. And Cloud Explorer, the Oracle's cloud has been, as you would expect, continually changing and growing and enhancing. So we have a Cloud Explorer that hangs off of Server Explorer, and it lets you do things like create new autonomous databases, or connect to them, or change different things about them. And so we have enhanced that to make sure it's in sync with all of the changes that are occurring in the OCI cloud for autonomous database and data lake and all of the features you may have heard about. And generally, if you've used our Oracle Developer Tools for VS Code in the past, which actually no longer exists, but if you've used that in the past, we're pulling all of those, well, most of those features that you may have used back in VS Code, we're pulling them into this product. So you can expect much quicker feature enhancements coming forward in the next year than normal, because the code's already written. We just have to bring it in. And the last thing I'll mention before we wrap up is that we are most likely changing the name. We're removing the version of Visual Studio from the name of the product. So when you look for it in the marketplace in 2026, you'll just see Oracle Developer Tools for Visual Studio. You won't see like Visual Studio 2026 or Visual Studio 2022. You won't see that in the name anymore. And primarily that's because we support both of them with the same release. We won't need to have a separate release for each of them like we did in the past. And that's the summary for our tools that are coming out in early 2026. If you're watching this on a video in later 2026, these features already are in the product. Okay, that's it, Alex. Let me move to the next slide. And did anyone have a question?
If you guys have any questions, you can put it in the chat. And then if not, we will leave you with several links and resources. So if you want to email us, you can. Our emails are at the bottom of the screen. And of course, for the latest information, you can go to our otn.oracle.com.net site, and that will lead you to the most recent and common resources to help you in your .NET and Oracle database development. We have code samples on our .NET DB samples GitHub site, and as soon as we release the NTS support, I will publish the demo we have for Spatial on there, since it's going to be pretty useful. If you want to know when that occurs, you can subscribe on X. Christian and I are both on Medium, and we generally announce our new features, new releases on there. So you can, of course, subscribe to our feeds. I will definitely be doing blog posts, since it's upcoming, on the new Spatial feature with ODP.NET and EF Core later this month. And then early next year, I will have one on our next ODP.NET release, which will be 23.26.1, which will include the client configuration providers that you saw, the transaction priority. We will post videos on YouTube when there's demos that we want to run to show you, so you can go to our YouTube site that you can see on the screen. But thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope you learned something new and can apply it for your development.